You're already behind. Not because you're lazy, not because you lack talent, but because while you were figuring out whether AI was worth it, your competitors quietly automated half their operations, cut their overhead, and started scaling without hiring a single new employee. That's not speculation, that's the market you're competing in right now. Welcome back to Venture Void. If you're a solo founder or small business owner trying to build something real without burning out or bleeding capital, you're exactly where you need to be. Today we're breaking down Claude, Anthropic's AI model, and specifically how smart operators are using it to run leaner, move faster, and generate revenue their competitors can't even see yet. This isn't a tool review. This is a tactical breakdown of how Claude functions as an unfair business advantage, what it actually replaces in your operation, and where it falls short, because you deserve the full picture. Let's start with the real problem. The average small business owner spends somewhere between 15 and 25 hours every single week on tasks that generate zero revenue. Writing emails, drafting proposals, creating social content, answering the same customer questions, formatting reports, researching competitors, onboarding documentation, legal adjacent copy nobody wants to pay a lawyer $400 an hour to write. That's not running a business. That's being a very expensive administrative assistant to your own company. And if you're a solo founder, that time isn't just lost productivity, it's lost opportunity. Every hour you spend formatting a client proposal is an hour you didn't spend acquiring the next 10 clients. The brutal math looks like this. If your time is worth $100 an hour, and if you're serious about your business, it should be worth considerably more, then 20 hours of admin work per week equals $2,000 a week in opportunity cost. That's $104,000 a year you're not generating because you're buried in the operational sludge of running a business. Most small business owners never look at it that way. They should. Claude changes the equation. Here's what it actually is. A large language model built by Anthropic with a specific emphasis on nuanced reasoning, long context retention, and what the company calls constitutional AI, meaning it's designed to be genuinely helpful without the guardrails constantly getting in the way of real work. The current version, Claude 3.5 Sonnet, has a 200,000 token context window. In practical terms, that means you can feed it an entire business plan, a full year of customer emails, a 150-page legal document, your entire product catalog, and it holds all of it in working memory while you interact with it. No other mainstream AI tool at this price point does that as effectively. So what does this look like in practice? Let's get specific. A freelance marketing consultant in Austin, 7 years in business, solo operation, was spending roughly 12 hours per week writing proposals, client reports, and strategy decks. She started using Claude Pro at $20 a month. She built a master prompt that included her voice, her methodology, her service tiers, and 3 sample proposals she'd written over the years. Now she pastes in a client discovery call transcript, runs it through Claude, and gets a first draft proposal in about 4 minutes. She edits for 20 minutes. The entire process that used to take 3 hours now takes 25 minutes. She reclaimed nearly 10 hours a week, raised her rates by 30% because she had bandwidth to take on better clients, and her monthly revenue went from $8,500 to $13,000 in 6 months. One tool, $20 a month. That's not exceptional. That's what happens when you actually integrate this properly. Here's the operational breakdown of how to deploy Claude across a small business. Start with your content engine. If you're producing any content, email newsletters, LinkedIn posts, blog articles, YouTube scripts, Claude becomes your first draft machine. You feed it your brand voice document, your audience profile, and a topic. It produces. You refine. A task that used to take 2 hours drops to 35 minutes. Run that across 4 content pieces a week and you've recovered 6 hours monthly just on content alone. Second, customer communication. Claude can draft templated responses for your 10 most common customer inquiries, shipping questions, refund policies, service scope clarifications, onboarding instructions. Build a Claude-powered response library. Some operators feed Claude their entire inbox history using the export function. Let it analyze patterns and produce a full FAQ and response playbook in an afternoon. A small e-commerce business with 200 monthly customer emails could cut response drafting time by 70% doing exactly this. Third, and this is where it gets genuinely powerful, strategic thinking. Most solopreneurs don't have a board. They don't have a team to bounce ideas off. They make major business decisions in isolation and then wonder why the execution falls apart. Claude can function as a strategic sounding board if you feed it context correctly. Share your business model, your revenue numbers, your constraints, your goals. Ask it to pressure test your pricing strategy. Ask it to identify your 3 biggest operational bottlenecks based on what you've described. Ask it to write a SWOT analysis from the perspective of your most dangerous competitor. The quality of output here is directly proportional to the quality of context you provide. But when you do it right, you're essentially getting a 500 an hour consultant for the cost of a Netflix subscription. Now, let's talk about what Claude actually replaces, because this is where the real ROI lives. It replaces a junior copywriter. The average salary for a junior copywriter in the US is between $45,000 and $58,000 annually. Claude Pro costs $240 a year. For a solo operator, Claude handles first draft copy, product descriptions, ad variations, email sequences, and landing page text faster than any junior hire and without the management overhead. It replaces your social media manager for ideation and drafting. Not strategy. Claude still needs your direction, but the actual production of content, that's automated. An agency owner in the UK reported cutting his content production costs by $1,800 a month by eliminating a part-time contractor and routing that work through Claude instead. It replaces your research assistant, competitive analysis, industry trend summaries, market sizing estimates, counter-argument generation. You can feed Claude a competitor's entire website, their pricing page, their reviews from G2 or Trustpilot, and ask it to identify positioning gaps you could exploit. That kind of analysis used to cost you either significant time or a consultant's day rate. Now it costs you an afternoon and a well-structured prompt. It replaces the first draft of legal adjacent documents. Operating agreements, service contracts, NDAs, terms of service. Claude won't replace your attorney for final review, and you should absolutely have a lawyer look at anything binding. But Claude can produce a solid working draft that your lawyer then edits for a fraction of the time, cutting your legal bill by 50 to 70% in some cases. Now, the catch, and there is always a catch, and you deserve to hear it straight. Claude is not a decision maker. It's a force multiplier for your thinking, not a replacement for it. Operators who use Claude as a crutch, who take outputs without critical review, who paste Claude's strategy recommendations directly into client decks without pressure testing them, who let it write customer communications without editing for accuracy, those operators get burned. Claude will confidently produce something incorrect. It will miss context you didn't provide. It will occasionally take a direction you didn't intend and run with it. The business owner who knows their domain, reviews outputs critically, and treats Claude as a first draft rather than a final product, that person wins. The one who automates their judgment along with their workload creates a different kind of expensive problem. Also worth knowing, Claude's knowledge has a training cutoff, which means anything that's happened recently in your industry, your market, or the regulatory environment, Claude may not know it. You need to feed it current information to get current analysis. It's a thinking partner, not an oracle. The final frame to take with you. The businesses pulling ahead right now are not necessarily the ones with bigger budgets. They're the ones with faster iteration cycles, lower production costs, and more hours per week redirected toward high-value activity. Claude, used properly, integrated deliberately, reviewed critically, is one of the clearest paths to that outcome available to a small operator today at any price point. $20 a month. That's the barrier to entry for what we just described. The question isn't whether you can afford to use it. The question is whether you can afford to keep competing against people who already are. If this gave you a real edge, subscribe to Venture Void. We publish every week. No fluff, no recycled advice, just the tools, tactics, and business frameworks that actually move numbers for solo operators and small teams. Hit the bell. You don't want to miss what's coming next.